for helping put this together, especially as Pastor Lundy as well. Pastor Lundy is also co-chairing our 250-year anniversary on July 4th, 2026. So she's quite active, and I thank her for coming together, and Director Garlick and her staff, and her mom is here. And I want to thank our First Lady, Tammy Murphy, for making a presentation here as well on maternal health. She's going to be joining us in the city next Saturday, May 4th, for a big family festival, and we'll welcome her to our city then. And maternal health and the issues being discussed here today really play into everything she's trying to do throughout the state of New Jersey. So thank you, Mrs. Murphy and Director Garlick and Pastor Lundy, for working to put this together. And ladies, I hope it's a very informative seminar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mayor, for coming. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I also thank all of you for being here, and I apologize that we are starting a little bit late, but thank you again for being here. Our facilitator for our time together this morning is Director Krishna Garlick, and I'm going to invite her to come now as she helps us to adjust the schedule so that we can honor the time of First Lady Tammy Murphy. Let's give her a hand as she comes.
Good morning. Good morning. So glad that you all have made time to come here. And so I just have some really short remarks. Can you hear us okay, First Lady? Looks like you're traveling in between things. Oh, not. She said kind of so. And then whoever else we have online, we have Pietra. Can you hear us okay? If you can give us a thumbs up. And you can hear us okay. And Samiko. Can you hear us okay? Greetings, everyone. As Reverend Lundy said, my name is Krishna Garlick. I'm the Director of Health and Human Services, and so for the City of Elizabeth. Welcome to our roundtable discussion dedicated to addressing the critical issues of maternal health within the minority communities. We're gathered here to shine a light on the disparities and challenges faced by women from these groups and to foster a dialogue that will lead to actionable solutions. As we engage in today's discussion, let's acknowledge that while advancements in healthcare have generally increased the quality of maternal care, these benefits have not been equitably distributed. Minority women continue to experience a disproportionate burden of maternal morbidity and mortality, a reality that demands our immediate attention and collective action. So our aim for this roundtable is to identify the unique obstacles that inhibit minority women from receiving maternal health care they deserve. Together, through the sharing of knowledge, expertise, experiences, we will explore innovative approaches to improve access, enhance quality of care, and ensure culturally competent services that respect each woman's dignity and individual needs. This conversation is vital as the health of a mother significantly impacts the well-being of her children, family, and the larger community. It is our responsibility to ensure that every mother, irrespective of her ethnicity or socioeconomic status, has the support and resources necessary for a healthy pregnancy and childbirth. So let us use this opportunity, not just to talk, but to pave the way for transformation. Our combined efforts here today can lead to a future where maternal health disparities are no longer a common occurrence. So again, I thank you for being here today, and I thank Reverend Dr. Lundy for having the vision to bring us all together to the table to discuss such an important topic. So I work with politicians all the time because I work for the mayor, right? Reverend Lundy's nervous about the First Lady's time. So I know that she wants to get right to First Lady, but I respect for everyone's here that's in person, right? That we want to be able to follow our program and that we want to be able to talk about an issue that we have Black and brown people here in the room to talk about what's going on in our community. So the First Lady is going to address us about why it is that she has taken this on as a cause right? What it is that she's doing as the wife of the governor. But this is our life. This is our reality. This is what we live. So although as much as we appreciate her comments and what she's going to say, the reality is that these are our brothers, our sisters, our cousins, our aunts, our uncles, right? We're talking about what's happening to black and brown people, right? So we're going to give her an opportunity to address us, and then we're going to get back to talking about what's happening in our lives with our families. So, First Lady, we would love to hear from you.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Director, can you hear me? I don't know.
We can. Yes, we can hear you.
Sure.
We can hear you.
Perfect. All right. So, Reverend Dr. Lundy, thank you so much for the invitation to be a part of today's program. I'm especially grateful since this is the second time this week that you have hosted me, so thank you for that. Mayor, it's always lovely to see and hear you. And Director, thank you not only for that introduction, but also for your help with our upcoming festival. I also want to thank the Elizabethport Presbyterian Center and the Elizabeth Department of Health and Human Services for organizing this roundtable. Ms. Gibson, I just want to share with you that I had the opportunity to see your incredibly powerful a little over 2 years ago, and it truly has stayed with me ever since then. So, I founded Nurture NJ in 2019 to solve New Jersey's maternal and infant health crisis. But the truth is that this movement began decades ago by mothers who bravely spoke out about their experiences and family members who, in the wake of tragedy, made sure the stories of their loved ones, mothers who lost their lives needlessly to maternal health complications, would not be forgotten. Thank you for sharing Shawnee's story with us, and I want to thank everyone who's attending this roundtable today for being a part of this absolutely critical work. Raising awareness of our state's crisis, as well as the work we are doing to resolve it, is an essential part of our strategy to transform New Jersey into a national gold standard for maternal and infant health. When we first began this work, the United States was ranked 55th in the world for maternal deaths, and New Jersey was ranked 47th out of all 50 states. And while our rankings alone were appalling, even more disturbing were our racially disproportionate outcomes, as Director Bollwage was just mentioning. At the start of the administration, a black mother in New Jersey was nearly 7 times more likely than a white mother to die from maternity-related complications. And a black baby was over 3 times more likely than a white baby to die before his or her first birthday. Our goal is simple, to solve this crisis, and in so doing, to transform New Jersey into the safest and most equitable state in the nation to deliver and raise a baby. And we have a whole host of groundbreaking ways we are going to get there. The establishment of our Maternal and Infant Health Innovation Authority, the only one of its kind in the entire nation. Our newly signed legislation that guarantees access to a doula in every birthing hospital in the state, if a mother so chooses, and our universal nurse home visitation program, which guarantees up to 3 completely free visits by a trained nurse at home within the first few weeks of bringing home a new baby. And these are just some of the many innovative and common sense ways we are ensuring mothers get the support they need and deserve. Quite frankly, the range of support mothers need to ensure they and their families are thriving is wide. They obviously need safe housing, reliable transportation, nutritious food, good schools, excellent childcare, consistent employment, and truly so much more. And one of the best ways that we've found to support families is to bring resources directly into communities, which is why I am very excited to share that we are hosting our 20th statewide family festival in Elizabeth on May 4th at the Dunn Sports Center from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. These family festivals target cities with high rates of Black and Hispanic infant mortality and connect mothers, fathers, grandparents, and anyone else involved in taking care of a child with state, county, and local resources, essentially creating a one-stop shop for care, support, resources, and relief. And I'm also thrilled to say that our festivals have a block party atmosphere with free food and games, entertainment, and giveaways. So when you're sharing this information with families in the community, as I sincerely hope you will, please let them know to bring the kids. And by the way, if you come across anyone who may be undocumented, please also share with them that this is a safe and very welcoming space, so all should feel free to join in. I'm so grateful for any support you can provide in spreading the word, and I would like to leave you with some good news. I'm pleased to share that our work has begun to move the needle, as our state's ranking has moved from 47th in the country to 27th. And that progress is really thanks to the incredible amount of collaboration, cooperation, and innovation that we've seen across industries, government entities, community organizations, and so much more. Together, we will reach our goal of making New Jersey the safest and most equitable state in the nation to deliver and raise a baby. And I just thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much, First Lady. Look forward to seeing you next week, or I guess it's about a week now. It's about a week away at the event.
May 4th.
May 4th.
A week from Saturday.
Yes, a week from tomorrow.
Okay.
So look forward to seeing you then.
Tomorrow.
All right, thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great roundtable.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
So I know later today we're going to have an opportunity to kind of share stories and discussions, personal experiences. You know, my family has had several people who unfortunately have not had the greatest experiences with their GYNs and maternal health, I guess experience is the right way to say it. I think there's an interesting perspective of what the First Lady is presenting around what are the reasons for the increase or decrease in the number of instances. I would be really interested at some point for us to talk about how we believe doulas that come from our communities have really played a role in helping to change that. You know, I think that give credit to, you know, we've made resources more available for people, but the reality is, as Black and brown people, we've stood up for ourselves, and doulas have started to be more present as an option for people for childbirth. The city of Elizabeth also completed a health equity and diversity study about 6 months ago, I guess now. One of the things that was repeated by mothers, seniors, Black and Latino men was that oftentimes when they go to our local hospital, when they go to many of our medical facilities, when they complain about certain things, that doctors don't hear them. Doctors don't acknowledge what they're saying and respect that they know their bodies and that they have a right then to demand what they want, the treatment that they want for themselves. And so if that's happening to Black and brown people when, you know, they're going in pregnant and looking for, you know, and I was hoping this young lady was going to be here so she could give her testimony. I know that unfortunately she recently lost her grandchild. Her mother, the mother of the child, her daughter, went to the doctor and said something's wrong. And they did not believe her. Oh, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. And she said, no, something's wrong. I know something's wrong. And the next day her baby was gone. Right? So how do we, again, thanks First Lady for the resources. How do we get doctors, nurses, who tend most often to be of another nationality, right, to listen to what we are saying, to listen to our body, like we know our body and we're trying to express to you what it is that we are feeling and seeing in our lives, right? And so I think we've got to, at some point, have that conversation. And so Reverend Lundy is giving me the eye, so I'm going to move on. She's like, move to the next topic. All right, so I get the honor and privilege of introducing our guest speaker, Ms. Shawnee Benton Gibson, who I have not had the opportunity to meet in person, but I will, and I'm looking forward to hearing your comments today. She is the CEO of Spirit of a Woman Leadership Development Institute and the co-founder of the Araya Foundation. She has over 32 years of administrative, clinical, and executive coaching experience and expertise in women's leadership, youth development, reproductive justice, racial equity, individual couples, family and group counseling, trauma, and bereavement. These skills, combined with her spiritual and artistic gifts, allow Shawnee to guide individuals as they navigate the various stages and phases of their lives. Shawnee employs a holistic, cultural, and spiritual approach to her work and utilizes a social justice lens as a foundational principle for her service to community. Her primary healing tools consist of spiritual counseling, vision coaching, psychodrama, sociometry, sacred rituals, energy work, and performing arts and storytelling as mediums to ignite transformation and initiate catharsis. Shawnee is the subject of the Emmy-nominated documentary Aftershock. The film follows her and her family as they fight for reproductive justice in the wake of the tragic and preventable death of Shawnee's eldest daughter, Shawnee Benton Gibson, due to a birth-related pulmonary embolism. According to Shawnee, activism is a labor of love and liberation. Please welcome Ms. Shawnee Benton Gibson.
Thank you. Decibel, you know. We ask and see. All righty. I didn't get a chance to look at everyone's faces because I was sitting with what I would share. One of the things about me is that I just read the energy of the space, not just the people, but the ancestral presence in this space, because all of us are connected to folks who are not here anymore, but who are also here in this space to make sure that we do what we're charged to do inside of the privilege of leadership and fellowship and personhood and womanhood and manhood and all the hoods that we are blessed to be connected to. So I'm always grateful for opportunities to speak and teach and co-create. But the biggest thing for me is that I get an opportunity to represent my ancestral line in this space. That is not about me at all. That my name is connected to many, many, many other names. But before I go further, I just want to ask for permission to begin or to continue in the space by the eldest member of the community, the eldest member of this collective. I don't know who it is, but we'll identify who it is and we'll honor them and pay homage and lift them up. Some of you may know already, but I don't know. So.
86. Is that the oldest?
I think that's all.
So you may possibly be, Mother, the eldest in this space by virtue of you being 86 years young and juicy?
86 this July.
Yeah, oh, soon to be, so 85. They're trying to rush you, right? Rushing you.
No, just blessed to be here.
Yes, and we have the absolute blessing of having you here. So, you know, I love that y'all were like, oh, they're not telling. Because I don't know where we got this from or how we got here about not telling our ages, but that has nothing to do with Black folk and melanated people. We celebrate eldership in our community, and I'm saddened that it has been duped or sullied by whiteness and patriarchy. So I honor you for declaring that you're 85 and moving towards 86, and I respectfully ask for your permission to continue. May I have your permission?
Yes, you do.
Thank you so much. So I also want to do what the ancestors want me to do, that once again are part of my clan, which is to name some folks. So my daughter transitioned, so she's now an ancestor, and I say she's now older than me because she's an ancestor. She died in her physical body at age 30, but once you transcend these bodies, you become timeless and ageless. So she's now my elder, right? So I want to acknowledge her. She's the mother of Anari, Naja Maynard. That's her daughter, who's now 7, and she's also the mother of Kari, Niall Maynard. He's now 4 years old, so she left those bright spirits in the space. But I just wanted to acknowledge the wombs. So she lived inside of my womb for at least 9+ months, and my womb, my mother's still with us. Her name is Jill, and I lived inside of her womb. That was my first house, just like Shamani's first house was my womb, and her daughter's and her son's first houses were her womb. I acknowledge Joyce, who is my grandmother and the mother of Jill, and my mother Jill lived inside of her womb. I acknowledge Cheney, who's Joyce lived inside of her womb. I acknowledge Mary, and just all of the lineages. Trellis, who was my great-great-grandmother, and she was a midwife and a herbalist, and she didn't get formal training from anybody's school. She didn't get certified. She was certified by the ancestors. She was certified by the land. She was certified by the lineage that was passed from person to person, others who caught babies and they taught her how to catch babies. So I salute her, and I salute the other Mary that came before her, and there are other names that I do not know because our people were enslaved and we were robbed of the names. But the names and the wombs exist because I'm here. And so I acknowledge you all for the wombs that you came forth from, and we salute them. We don't dismiss the brothers because they had to be part of it, but ain't nothing like the wizardry of a womb. Nothing like it. And so I want to make sure that we acknowledge that. And if you remember nothing else that I say today, remember to lift up the wombs that had you be here. And if you gave birth, that your womb was a sacred space that has other living beings be here as well. So saying that, I also want to acknowledge the land on which I stand. For the moments that I have, I pray that I get to come back to Elizabeth, New Jersey to be with all of you, because it's already like really nice and pleasant and powerful being here, listening to the leadership. The mayor's name, Bollwage? Bollwage. Just acknowledging him for being in the space and blessing us for his presence. What I loved about the mayor is the engagement, the genuineness, or at least it felt like that. I didn't talk to him directly, but how he was engaging with all of you and how he lifted you up made him an endearing figure for me. I am in spaces a lot where public figures come and they'll stop and drop and roll out, right? And I use the terminology from Fire, stop, drop, and roll, but I'm saying it differently. They'll stop, drop a few lines, and roll on out. Now, he had to leave, but his energy is still present in the space because of how he was being. And there's a connectivity beyond this moment in time. No shade to public figures, especially politicians, but I just invite them to do better in reference to how they come into spaces where Black and brown people are, where they've been charged to serve us and support us in our growth and development. That you can't just be hitting and quitting in these situations, because we're deserving of much, much more. So I ain't here to start nothing, but I'm here to activate some stuff. Right. So I want to ask, who's aware of the first folk that were on these lands in which we live, work, and play? The indigenous folk, First Nation, Native Americans. Who are those folks? Because I was trying to look it up and I didn't get a chance to do that. But who knows that?
The Lenape.
Oh, Lenape here. Oh, it's the extension. Okay, so all right. I talk about the Lenape often because I live in Queens, and they're also present. They were present in that space, and their energy and light, their stewardship is very present. We build houses and factories and highways and on the lands that they stewarded for millennia. And we don't want to just be here not thinking about the folks who have been annihilated in this country, the folks who are suffering more than Black folk in reference to birthing and some mental health stuff and addiction issues and just the killing off of whole cultures as a result of colonization and the result of greed and patriarchy and capitalism. So I salute the Lenape people who lived, worked, and played. I salute the Lenape people who gave birth to children. I salute the Lenape women who bled into the land menstrually, right? I salute the Lenape people who fought to have their culture be present still even in these times, even though they were folks were trying to kill them off. So just doing that, and then once again an ancestral call. If you have lost your mother in this space, raise your hand. If your mother is no longer with us, thank you. Can you call those names, and we can do it collectively on 3. Just say her name. 1, 2, and 3. Ashe. So we salute the mothers because we're talking about mothers today. And I'm taking my time. I'm taking my time. I'm allowing the ancestors to speak through me and to me so that we can have a time together that will make a difference. There's loads that I can say, but I try to follow the direction of what Spirit tells me. And Mama Wanda, Sister Wanda, as I affectionately call her, Dr. Wanda, has told me, let it do what it does, like allow it to unfold in the moment. So I'm doing exactly that. I want to acknowledge the need to know our birth stories. So we named some mothers who transitioned, but there are mothers who we have that are still alive, that gave birth to us, like my mother Jill. I'm curious about whether you know your own birth story. So raise your hand if you know your birth story. The circumstances of surrounding your birth beyond the date of birth. So you know your birth story. That's so beautiful. You look puzzled though. Like, what has you looking perplexed?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
I was just thinking back to, I was Born at home.
Awesome. Where though? What city?
In Eastern Virginia,
Ah,
called Holland, Virginia.
Holla?
H-O-L-L-A-N-D, Holland.
Holland, Virginia. Born in the house.
Yes.
Wow.
And my mother used to tell me the story of how she worked all day in the field and began to have pains and went home and they called me. Like, it was all night, but I was born that next morning.
Yes, thank you. You know, what's so present for me is the womb being your first house and your birth being one of your first stories, right? That I'm conscious of the fact that toil was part of it. The rigor of working in the field, carrying loads and then a load in your belly, and then, you know, going into labor and then pushing life out into the world. I always wonder, and I talk about it in the Rites of Passage program that I lead, like our in the beginning stories. And do you know what your mother or the birthing person that gave birth to you, because all of us don't identify who give birth as mother, just keeping it real. Some people have wombs and they don't identify as women, right? And that might be puzzling to folks. If it is, just come to me and speak to me after. I'll explain what I mean. But knowing what the ecosystem was around the birthing or the carrying of the baby or babies, if they're multiples, knowing whether the mom or birthing person ate enough, were they loved on, was the pregnancy planned, were they in an intimate partnership that was a commitment with the other person, was the person, did they conceive as a product of sexual assault? Like, there are so many layers to the birthing stories, which are tied to what we're talking about, which is maternal morbidity and mortality in this country. The threads are multiple, right? It's not just the hospitals, it's the lived experiences, what they call the epigenetics. So my womb is connected to Jill's womb, but Jill was 15 years old when she gave birth to me, and there was lots of trauma and shame. She was a smart girl, right? She had been sent to boarding school, she had been skipped, and then she fell in love with my father, and it's questionable whether he loved her back, right? Because you can engage in all the things to manifest a baby, and love may not have anything to do with it, right? Because that's just how it goes, that's how it works biologically. And so my mother being 15, giving birth, and then in my family what happens is that we experience postpartum depression, sometimes psychoses, and I'm one of those people who experience both the depression and then with my second child psychoses. So I had thoughts of harming my in this room or who are online who might listen to or watch the recording who have had similar experiences but kept it secret because you don't talk about losing your mind, right? There's a stigma associated with that. You don't go and tell people, you know, last night while I was bathing my baby, I thought about putting her head under the water. But that was my story, and I fought through it. But what would it have been like if someone would have asked me after I had the traumatic birthing experience with my second child, and she needed a surgery because she had what they call a duodenal atresia, which means her stomach and intestines weren't connected. What would have happened after I gave birth in the 7th month, what they call preterm labor, if someone would have asked, are you okay? If someone would have asked, are you emotionally well? Not, are you mentally stable? But I just gave birth and it was traumatic. And my baby was not well and needed surgery. They took her in a helicopter and flew her out within minutes of her birth to a town that was 2 hours away from where I was living in North Carolina. No one asked me if I was okay. And I didn't get an opportunity to say, no, I'm not. Even if I didn't say that I'm seeing things or hearing things or I really think this baby isn't mine, because I was experiencing delusions. So my experience with birth trauma started way before my daughter died. It's part of a lineage, but it's bigger than my own family story on my mother's and father's side. It's part of my people's threads and stories and tapestries. I'm not the only one, and we haven't given ourselves permission to tell these stories. So some of my colleagues will say, I'm tired of hearing about trauma stories, and some of you might say the same. Can't we talk about something else? And I'm like, I'm looking at you, but it's not toward you, sis. And I want to acknowledge those on the line too. Don't want to skip over it. But I'm like, we have not touched the tip of the iceberg in reference to the trauma we've experienced. And if we just honed in on birth trauma alone, we would be here 10 years before we touched on the surface of the things that we've gone through. So no, sis, no, bro, we haven't talked about trauma enough. We don't talk about it enough. We need to tell these stories. I just did an event, it was a virtual series, and I was, what do they call it, ear hustling, because this space over here, y'all are talking about AI, right? Artificial intelligence. And my family, we're a family of artists, and I'm so grateful. And we use art as healing, we use art as ritual and ceremony, and so we designed a virtual convening for folks around the nation and abroad to watch us do a trial for J. Marion Sims. Do y'all know who that is? Anybody not know who J. Marion Sims is? Raise your hand if you do not know. All right, oh my goodness. I love that I get a chance to teach for the next few minutes that I have with all of you. So, you might have heard tell of this, y'all, you know, Southern folks heard tell of this, right? I'm from the North, but I'm also Southern-ish, right, in the way that I show up. So, J. Marion Sims was the doctor that they call the father of gynecology. Is it getting like clearer for you? The father of gynecology, and there were some protests in New York. There was a statue erected in his honor as the father of gynecology, all these breakthroughs and his contribution to the gynecological field and him creating it ways for us to birth safely and to be taken care of when we give birth. And that person, that being, performed 30 surgeries. This is only on one person. There are many others. On one woman alone in her womb, on her vagina, without anesthesia, without consent, without adequate light, without clean and adequate tools and instruments. 30 surgeries on the black bodies and wombs, and on the sacred space of Anarcha. And there was Betsy and Lucy and Louisa and Julia, and there are 17 names that we know of, because, you know, they didn't write all of it down. Like, why bother, right? These are enslaved women. Who cares? Consent? What do you mean? They're animals. Chattel slavery means I get to subjugate you and determine when you sleep and when you eat and who you have sex with and, you know, who you give birth to, and then just being forced to go through all of this traumatic and atrocious dynamics and experience all of this while your humanity is present but not acknowledged. So remember the names Betsy, Anarcha, Lucy, because they're the three that are most written about. But any of these women could be your great-great-great-grandmother. And you have no idea because the stories have not been written. They've probably been told, because, you know, in the cabins they were telling stories, and in the fields they were like, Massa is a mother, right? Whatever they were saying. But the bottom line is it's not written in history, and we have the experience of artificial intelligence. And what came to me as I was sitting in the seat, listening to folks saying, you know, they're concerned about it, I'm like, the real artificial intelligence is the false narratives we've been fed. The real artificial intelligence is white supremacy culture. The real artificial intelligence is patriarchy and capitalism and colonization. That's the stuff that's fake, that we've been fed and we operate from. Now, you know, I'm a scholarly person and I love that I went to school and all that, but where I got duped was when they called me gifted when I was a very young child. Who are the other gifted folk? I see you laughing. You were labeled as gifted as a child. Raise your hand if you were told that about yourself, right? And it's usually not so much about your artistry, but it's about what? Your scores, how academically proficient you are, right? And so I got fooled when I was told that I was not artistically gifted, but academically gifted. I was equally as artistically gifted, but that wasn't talked about a lot. It's like, oh, she does that on the side, right? That's her side thing, but that's not going to feed her and take care of her, you know. And it's nice you do those little side things and your activities, but you better be about the business of those books, right? So I study. And when you're labeled as gifted, what do they do when you're labeled as gifted as far as the work? You get more work. You get more work. So what got created in my elementary school experience is that you have to produce more, right? And more and more and more and more. So I started to get wired around me being smart and not me being gifted artistically or me being spiritually gifted, because I saw things from a young child, and that got pushed to the side and my brain got amplified, and my ability to do well on tests and regurgitate information. And so what it set up, and I'm now 55 years young and juicy, right? What it set up was a work ethic that is more of a worker beast than a worker bee. And so I've become a beast of burden based on white supremacy culture, and I'm going to keep repeating it unapologetically. Patriarchy says that the left side of my brain has more value than the right side of my brain. The right side of my brain is where my art is, my intuition is, my love and passion, my emotional intelligence, all of that. But that part is like, that's all right. But how can you conjugate your verbs well? Or how well do you process data? And how well do you know what's evidence-based and can share that in this space? And it has value. I don't want to throw it out like the baby with the bathwater, but it's not all of me. If I didn't bring the right side of my brain to this space, who you would be experiencing was a one-dimensional person. I don't care how many accolades we have. What's going to shift the dynamics with the birthing crisis that we have in the United States is us bringing our whole selves to the conversation. What's going to switch it is us being able to tell our stories. Yes, I experienced postpartum depression and I almost harmed myself. I thought about suicide or whatever the story is. Yes, I was pregnant by somebody, and I'm going to just keep it real, that was married. And I was sad about it, and I felt ashamed about it. So I didn't eat as well when I was pregnant. I didn't go to all the doctor's appointments. So I'm not talking about me. I'm saying the stories are out there. All of them. Yes, I was molested and got pregnant by the person who molested me, which is my uncle. Right? All these stories are in it. And they impact the outcomes of birthing. Do y'all know if you've experienced sexual trauma or sexual assault, that your relatedness to your womb space and the sacred gateway can be sullied and damaged and create a dynamic where you don't even want to push your baby out? So yes, we can talk about white supremacy. You know, I said it like 50 times already, but we also need to look at what our traumas are. Trauma alters the mind. Literally, this is not Shawnee stuff. This is what's written and studied, that it can shift your DNA and create a different person and a way of being. So we have to be very, very conscious of whether we're speaking our stories. It's like, oh, that's too much information. And if someone comes to you and they're tearful, like, we're in a meeting, why is she crying? Right? That's so unprofessional. I hope you cry because it's meant to heal us. So I want mothers to shed tears and tell their stories and talk about their traumas. I also want them to be able to speak up for themselves. But what a load to put on a mother that I'm giving birth and preparing to push out life into the world. And I also have to what about my chart? And while I'm pushing the baby out, no, I don't think I should be taking Pitocin. I don't want to speed the birth along. And while you're trying to breathe, can you not touch me like that? What? I don't want to make activists and advocates out of mamas giving birth or birthing people. I want the staff to take care of business and do it with integrity. I want their partners, however they identify, to be able to have enough knowledge to support, to be the doulas for their partners. You know, all doulas don't have to be trained. It's an energy and a vibration. You can have your mama be your doula while you're giving birth. I really think that we have to start looking at restoring our cultural practices and looking at this holistically, going back to the herbs and the land, going back to cover your feet, mama, if you just gave birth. You can't be walking around barefoot. That you're an open portal, so you need to lay it on down and allow your body to heal, not jump up because I got 6 weeks because I got to make this money to feed my family and have to go back to work, pumping at the job while you're trying to keep all the information and the balls in the air. It's atrocious. So J. Marion Sims is not the only terrorist. It might be the person at your job, that's your supervisor. It might be the CEO who's demanding that you keep generating work. And that some of us don't even have places to pump at work. Some of us have to go in the bathroom, in the dirty bathroom, depending on where you work, and pump there. We have to get it together. And because folks, the majority, I think, from looking at you, I don't want to make assumptions, are black and brown. What are the practices that your grandmother's grandmother's grandmother put into play, and now y'all have dismissed them because they're played out, outdated, obsolete, old-fashioned? Y'all better get them back. We need them. So let's name it in the space as I prepare to wrap up. What are some of the practices that y'all know need to be restored, that your grandmother would speak about, and people, it's like, oh, that's just grandma, and not listening. Or maybe you still listen. I don't want to make assumptions. I know I dismissed what my grandmama told me because I didn't think she knew what she was talking about after I had my babies. So anybody, name some things, y'all.
Not lifting heavy objects.
Yes. We're just doing the most. Beast of burden. Or burden, I don't know, is it beast of burden? Or burdens of I don't know. Y'all know what I mean, right? Operating like we can do all things. I know I do. Bragging about multitasking. Really nothing to brag about. What'd you say, sis?
Don't leave the house for like 30 or 40 days.
Yes.
I did that. I would leave. I was like, that's the way it's in a home.
Yes.
To avoid,
All the energy, like you're an open portal. So all that energy, like I live in New York, just getting on the train, all that I absorb. I'm a highly sensitive person. I'm an intuitive. So doing that when you're open like that is not healthy or grounding for yourself. And we're, once again, in this society, running back to work. And in a lot of instances, we don't have enough resources because we're underemployed or unemployed, or we're not making enough that our earnings don't match what our output is, right? And so we have to go back. Right, because we don't have 12 months of paid family leave, which a lot of states are fighting for, or people who are advocates like myself are fighting for, and states are like, no, that's not cost effective. To take care of your people is not cost effective? So what are the other things? Just name a couple of other things that you've been taught that maybe you don't practice.
You said it about making sure you're covered, especially as the weather is changing.
Yes. Yeah, if it's cold out. Like, my grandmother would talk about getting cold in the bone, like the cold getting in my bones, right? So you just had a baby and you out moving around, and no shade to the younger people, like please, I understand you want to show your shape and all this other stuff, but wearing a belly coat, not even a shirt. There's belly coats now. I'm like, they going in. I'm like, please dress warm, shaking while you looking fly, right? Walking around like, no, dress appropriately for the circumstances. You had your hand up. Oh, please. Why should we wear a bra?
Because to keep them a little higher than what it was before. Pressure from the milk.
Yes. The milk can, weigh them down.
Don't get it in the tub. Some of them was.
Yes. Like the water and bacteria and all the things. So.
There was a whole lot of old things.
Yes.
I did that to my daughter.
Yes.
I'm telling her that.
Thank you. Thank you. Did she listen?
She sure did.
Awesome. Thank you. What's your name, Mama?
Virginia Guzman.
Guzman? All right, Mrs. or Miss Guzman? All right, it's Ms. now, Miss Guzman. You in the market for a partner? No? Okay, I'm just checking because I am. I thought we might have a powwow about it, but you're not in the market. So before I take my seat,
Would you address having babies immediately after?
Oh, yes. So, first of all, you're most fertile after you have a baby. And, my two daughters are what they call Irish twins. I don't know what the black version of that is. Is there a black version when the babies are back to back? Yeah, I know. I'm looking for the black one. I want that. But I had my daughters right after one another. I believe that the reason why my second daughter came preterm, like in the 7th month and had all the issues, was I was so unhappy that I was pregnant. I was so sad and angry and living away from family and still hadn't fully recovered from having the first baby mentally and then physically too. But I was fertile and, we got pregnant again, my former husband and I. And I think she wanted out of my womb because I was so miserable. So she made a quick exit in the 7th month. She was like, I'm out of here. This chick, it's toxic in your womb. Right? And it's okay. I say it's the truth, right? It's like she doesn't want me. So let me get Yes. We're so amazing, right? Right, Mama Guzman? We can trigger it and activate our labor and yes. So she came out and there were things that needed to be addressed. But having a baby right after when you're not fully restored can make you more susceptible for complications, for sure. Go ahead, sis.
Maybe it might be a longer conversation, but I always had this theory of if the child's personality affects within the womb and the connection affects the mother's
Absolutely.
personalities, and vice versa, kind of have that a little bit of that discussion. I don't feel like a lot of times I do a lot of therapy, I do a lot of work with individuals, and a lot of times when I speak, it's kind of going back and exactly like you said, like even have the parents, the mother acknowledge the birth and some of the challenges that are faced, because a lot of times we see the children, we look at behavioral dynamics, mental health dynamics, and coping dynamics with the children, and we don't recognize or realize that a lot of stuff was that trauma.
Absolutely.
Right from the birth.
Yes.
Or vice versa, while the woman is, pregnant, how that's affecting all.
Absolutely.
And, each birth is different, and being able to understand that. And I feel like there's not enough conversations.
Absolutely.
To really be able to understand that your first child's pregnancy could have been this way, the second one could have been a little bit different.
Right.
But a lot of it has to do also with the influence of the child, the personality, and all those, that genetic combination as well. And I don't, think there's a lot of talk or conversation, investigation regarding that. To
Yeah.
acknowledge those things.
Sure. When they dismissed and dissed the granny midwives or the grand midwives from the equation, I don't know if anybody in the space has seen the Aftershock documentary that my family and I are in, and others. Like there's another family that experienced a major loss during COVID. Amber Isaac is the mother that was lost, along with my daughter, who were focused on in the film. But we talk about the grand midwives, the women that caught the babies in the South. When in Virginia, it was a grand midwife that caught you. And just thinking about them deciding that white men and white nurses needed to take over that space. And then it becoming more of an intellectual endeavor rather than a spiritual manifestation of new life and opportunity and possibility. That our history is, for this country, and just talking about Black maternal health, is connected to the motherland. And many of those folks bought seeds in their hair and started new harvests here from Africa, that they brought traditions, that they were able to hide their language and culture embedded inside of the forced culture from the white folks that enslaved them and terrorized them, that we're an amazingly resilient people. And there are other folk, that are from all over the world that are indigenous and have all of these great offerings for us to tap into. But when we disconnected from the whole self, like you were just talking about, then we created a dynamic that has been the catalyst for where we are now. You can't just focus on the tracings, when they put you up the monitor and the tracings with the baby's heartbeat, and focus on the blood work and all that other stuff. That has value, but the energy, like who your people are, is important to the process too. What child is coming through? Like, who is this person going to be? The naming, like all of the pieces. And we've skipped over that, and we brought into this system, and we fought hard to integrate. But what we lost in integration is a huge part of who we are culturally and energetically as a people and spiritually. And we have to restore that order and stop thinking that all that matters is how smart you are. There's levels of competence that have nothing to do with what you can learn from a book. What I know and what I speak about is not just what I learned from a book. In fact, a lot of stuff I learned from the book is antithetical to what I teach now. So yes, what you just shared, the body, the story. Like they do assessments and they do what they call in my work, oh my God, when you meet with a person and you get the history, right, from them. All right, you gather the history, but they're not thinking about some of the things we're talking about right now. I'll tell this funny story and then I'm going to take my seat. There was a woman in the hospital. I think she gave birth. Don't get me wrong. I might be wrong about this. But Black woman. She was in the hospital and she was doing this. What's this, y'all? Immediately. But a white nurse thought it was something that she was engaging in self-harm. And was talking about it like a psychiatric evaluation was needed. And it happens all the time. Cultural incompetence, a lack of humility, a lack of care and concern about who people are and how they are. It was a simple question that could have been asked. You could have been like, everything all right? And the Black girl would have been like laughing, like, girl, my weave is itching. My braid's too tight, right? But just went immediately and started running for the psych department to get an intervention going. And can you imagine how many circumstances where the intervention was carried out and the person has actually been determined as not being well mentally, and then they take all this action and the person's trying to explain or doesn't even know what's being talked about. It's like, self-harm, what are y'all talking about, right? And how many times we have been treated as if we are losing our minds when all that is happening is our expression as Black and brown people, or we're going through something. Even how we speak regarding our children, like I'm gonna kill that boy, like, and you don't mean you're gonna kill that boy, but it's taken like we're abusive, and there's lots to contend with other than what happens at the hospital, at the birthing center. Our whole world and way of being, which I love being melanated. When I come back again, because I think I'm coming back, I want to be a woman and I want to be Black every single time. There's nobody like us on the planet. And when we get restored back to our true selves, this planet is going to be restored. The gateway to true balance and equilibrium is through the Black woman and the Black womb. And because we've forgotten it, we're in this cycle. But if we jump ship and start focusing on who we truly are, we're going to be back on balance and we're going to be unstoppable. We just had an earthquake in New York. I'm like, Mother Nature's tired of us.
Yep.
Tired of us. And when we get right with her too, back to the land, and you know, I love the technology, but the technology started in the soil, right? If we get back to that, we're all going to be all right. So I'm not disheartened by anything. I love that y'all moved from 47 to, or we moved from 47 to 27 in New Jersey. But I'm also conscious of the fact that some of that might require what we're talking about today. The reason why we didn't move to 2 or 3 or number 1 is because this conversation is missing from the equation. We can clean up the tech and the what happens in the institutions, but we need to clean up our hearts and get restored back to who we truly are. So I'm going to leave you with the formula that I utilize in the national collective that I'm involved with. Speak. Speak up, move, take action, change, be open, flexible, and malleable. And part of it is changing your mindset about whose you are and who you are. And I love y'all. And there's not a thing you can do about it. So please, let's take action and let's stay in touch, physically, energetically, and spiritually, so that we can grow through this moment in time. Love you so much. Thank you.